We're all told that university is a place for higher learning, right? But what happens when it becomes, well, something else entirely? Today, we're diving deep into a really critical issue in Pakistan's education system, how universities are turning into what some are calling degree factories. This quote right here, it just cuts right to the heart of the whole problem. I mean, just imagine that for a second. Your education isn't about curiosity or growing as a person. It's just about surviving. That's the tough reality for so many students we're going to talk about. So what exactly do we mean by a degree factory? Well, think of it like this. It's an institution where the main goal is no longer real education. Instead, it's all about churning out credentials. The focus completely shifts from the process of learning to the product, the degree, the high GPA. Basically, the piece of paper that gets your foot in the door. All right, let's break this down. How does a whole system get to a point where actual, genuine learning is seen as a risk, a liability even, for a student who's just trying to get ahead? It really all starts with something our source calls the trap. You've got this super crowded job market, and its intense focus on high GPAs becomes this simple filter for employers. This creates a massive domino effect. The universities feel the pressure to produce graduates with top marks, which then leads to a culture where students are basically incentivized to chase grades, not actual knowledge. Education becomes just a transaction, not a transformation. Okay, so what does this environment actually feel like for a student, day in and day out? The picture painted by our source material is, well, it's pretty bleak. It's a place where fear has totally replaced curiosity. And wow, this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? The difference between the ideal and the reality is just staggering. On one side, you have what a classroom should be, vibrant, full of curiosity, healthy debate. And on the other, the grim reality for so many. A quiet, fearful room where asking the wrong question could lead to actual public humiliation. So what's fueling this toxic atmosphere? It's kind of like a perfect storm, really. You have authoritarian teachers who just shut down questions. You've got administrative inefficiency that makes students feel like their time is worthless. And all of this creates this pervasive feeling of being totally invisible. Is it any surprise this is contributing to a massive mental health crisis on campuses? And this brings us to a huge structural problem. It goes way beyond the classroom. Students often find they have absolutely no official power to voice their concerns or to even try and push for change. This timeline right here, it reveals a really key moment in this whole story. The official ban on student unions way back in 1984 has had this long, lingering impact. Flash forward to today, and students have no formal collective body to represent them. They're left without any official channel to really voice their concerns. And this slide, well, it perfectly captures the results. Without any kind of union, students are just left powerless. Unfair treatment, terrible facilities, questionable decisions by the administration, it all goes unchallenged because there's just no formal way for students to band together and demand something better. So when you combine a toxic learning environment with a feeling of complete powerlessness, what's the ultimate result? The source material suggests it's a mass exodus. And this is the key question the whole system is now facing. What happens when the next generation of students looks at this situation and decides, you know what? The degree, the credential, it's just not worth the cost to their mental health and their personal growth? Well, here's the answer in one very stark number: a 13% drop in university enrollment in just 2 years. Look, this is not a small dip. The crucial takeaway here is that students are voting with their feet. They are literally walking away from the system. So where are they going? They're actively seeking out alternatives that they believe will give them a better return on their time, their money, and their effort. We're talking about looking for education abroad, jumping straight into corporate jobs that value skills more than degrees, or even taking the entrepreneurial plunge and starting their own businesses. But it's not all doom and gloom. The source doesn't just point out the problem, it actually offers a prescription for how we can start to fix this degree factory. So what's the path forward? Our source proposes a pretty clear 3-step plan. First step, redefine the role of the Higher Education Commission, or HEC. Second, bring back student unions. And third, fundamentally change the way teaching is actually done. So let's dig a little deeper into that. The HEC's role, which right now is a lot about accreditation and rankings, needs to shift. It should be about actively protecting students by enforcing things like mental health services and fair complaint systems. Student unions? They should be brought back, but with really clear rules to make sure they're about dialogue, not disruption. And finally, teaching has to pivot away from just memorizing facts and move towards applied research, critical thinking, and technology. And that leaves us with the final and most critical question. This whole crisis really boils down to this. Is it even possible to overhaul the system? Can these institutions, which have become so focused on just producing paper credentials, be transformed back into the vibrant, supportive, and challenging places of true learning they were always supposed to be?